Now we're going to be concluding this piece from Shigehiko Hasumi, John Ford, or The Eloquence of Gesture, which is translated from the original French by Adrian Martin. The Throwing Woman. It has often been said that Ford's films illustrate or defend the values of male communities. The throwing theme every time indicates the contrary. Without exception, apart from the rare collective hurls, this theme isolates the hero at the heart of a group. It is rather the women who achieve solidarity with these heroes, by throwing objects with an aplomb equal to the men. From her first appearance in My Darling Clementine, Chihuahua Linda Darnell, waitress in the Tombstone Bar, circulates among the card players that include Wyatt Earp, Henry Fonda. Having caught a chip in midair with a deftness identical to that of the singer on Dennis O'Dea's Street gathering up the money that has been thrown away in The Informer, she manipulates this chip as she sings and gives a sign to the boss concerning the card players. She then throws the chip on the table. The singer's attitude can be compared to that of the Fordian heroes who throw an object in order to conclude a scene. Realizing her role as a spy, Fonda brusquely grabs Chihuahua and throws her into a large tub of water. Note that this scene reproduces that of the card game in Alan Dwan's Frontier Marshal 1939, which Ford remade. In the Dwan, Earp, Randolph Scott, throws the spying waitress, Binny Barnes, but she herself had thrown nothing. Darnell's behaviour is thus purely an invention of Ford's. Jean Arthur in The Whole Town's Talking 1935 throws her hat and cardboard cup with a lightness that is similar to John Wayne's in The Quiet Man. Darnell in My Darling Clementine throws her beer glass onto the bar, just like Wayne in The Horse Soldiers. Ava Gardner in Mogambo 1953, alone in her room, unsuccessful in her attempt to seduce Clark Gable, angrily hurls a suitcase and a wine bottle as forcefully as she can. As for Maureen O'Hara in The Wings of Eagles, she throws her hat and towel as nonchalantly as Wayne wields a flower bouquet. Elizabeth Allen in Donovan's Reef, led by Wayne into his father's house, throws off her handbag, high heels, and hat with an entirely masculine ardour. And finally, Vera Miles in Rookie of the Year throws her gun in a way that recalls Ben Johnson's gesture in Wagon Master. In short, the throwing theme applies equally well to women as to men. Benign/malign. Throwing the same object can express different emotions according to the narrative situation. For instance, characters throw rocks to several different ends. We remember Wayne, chased by Indians in Stagecoach, at a crucial moment in the hasty crossing of the river, throwing rocks at the horses to make them move. Victor Mature in Flight in My Darling Clementine, sitting next to the hurrying coach driver, also throws rocks at the horses to make them go faster. Among westerns, only Ford's Showmen throwing stones at animals so frequently. In Stagecoach, this act of throwing takes on a liberating quality. In the final scene, we see the sheriff, George Bancroft, and the doctor, Thomas Mitchell, throw in jest stones at the coach, holding Wayne and Claire Trevor. This benign gesture of throwing closes the film. On the other hand, stones are thrown without prior intention into ponds or rivers. In The Lost Patrol, a soldier in the middle of the desert throws a small stone into the water of an oasis, in despair at being encircled by unseen enemies. In contrast, when Richard Widmark in Two Rode Together 1961, during his exchange with Shirley Jones in the forest, throws a stone in the pond, the surface of the water, rippling with circular waves, prefigures the fulfillment of their love. This scene recalls a particularly beautiful moment in the Fordian oeuvre. Henry Fonda in Young Mr. Lincoln 1939, about to depart from his beloved, stands at the edge of a river, slowly approaches the water and throws a stone. It is a splendid scene. The water's surface is covered by growing circles, thematically signifying his farewell to the woman he loves. In the following shot, we understand that she has died. The future President of the United States pays a visit, in the cold of winter, to her snow-covered grave. The throwing theme has engendered a sober transitional scene announcing the annihilation of this female presence. A stone thrown into water can also provoke an apparition. In The Searchers, Wayne hunts for his niece who has been snatched by Indians. After several years, he finds but cannot save her, since she behaves like an indigenous person and has become part of the chief's family. Wayne and his nephew, Jeffrey Hunter, thus find themselves in the middle of the desert, completely devastated. Unconsciously, Wayne picks up a stone and throws it into a pond. As if in response to his gesture, a tiny female silhouette appears, climbing down the hill like normal. It is a magic moment, for this apparition of Wayne's niece confirms, unexpectedly, the constancy of the throwing theme. But it is also a tragic moment, since this theme recalls the death of a beloved. Whence Wayne's violence, which can countenance neither the appearance of his niece nor the disappearance of his sister-in-law. Was Ford, while shooting The Searchers, dreaming of that farewell scene at the river's edge in Young Mr. Lincoln? At an interval of 17 years, those two films answer the question via the gestures of Wayne and Fonda throwing a stone into water. The Fortean oeuvre comes into its own through this knitting up of the interfilmic thematic game of throwing. Solitude. Only those characters capable of throwing an object at decisive moments are truly Fortean. They are defined neither by their character nor their profession, but by their performance of the act of throwing. However, this visible system is rarely perceived as the manifestation of a theme. The way in which Wayne throws off his scarf in Fort Apache is too fleeting visually to be noticed. The filmmaker reprises this scarf theme in The Horse Soldiers in order to insist on the character's solitude. It is in this light that the films of Ford's final decade must be regarded. When Ford declared to Peter Bogdanovich that The Searchers was the tragedy of a loner, Lindsay Anderson was scandalized by this choice of word. Surely Ford was wrong about his own film, mistaking Wayne's neurotic personality for that of a loner. After all, he secretly loves his sister-in-law, something that Ford claimed critics did not notice. Was this British critic, theatre director and filmmaker, for whom Ford's career peaked at The Sun Shines Bright 1953, sensitive to the magic of Wayne throwing a stone in water, thus evoking the memory of a dead woman? Did he understand that in every Ford film this solitary gesture uncovers a thematic configuration based on the act of throwing? Precisely because of their solitude, Fordian characters are in solidarity via the emotion that is expressed by throwing an object far into the distance. In Ford, unlike in Howard Hawks, it is rare that, as a sign of friendship or partnership, people share an object by throwing it. In contrast to the matchbox thrown by Humphrey Bogart to Lauren Bacall in To Have and Have Not 1944, or the gun thrown by Ricky Nelson to John Ford in Rio Bravo 1959, optimistic images of solidarity, the rifle exchange between Woody Strode and Wayne in The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance expresses the tragedy of a loner. Vera Miles, the beloved woman, belongs to another man, as in The Searchers. We have seen it. Wayne parts from her by tossing an extinguished match as a sign of farewell. In the following scene, at a saloon bar, he throws his cigarette on the floor. He knocks out one of Liberty's henchmen, throws his gun on the bar, and hurls his whiskey glass at those who are escaping. Drunk, he throws the payment for his libation at the barman and leaves the saloon, bottle in hand. At the doorway, he throws still more money at the band. Wayne, the actor, seems to parody himself, repeating the gestures he made in The Horse Soldiers. The narrative effect of the throwing theme is very emphatic here. Before entering his home, he throws the bottle into the garden and once inside, lights a lamp and throws it against the wall. This self-destruction on Wayne's part via successive acts of throwing perfectly illustrates the solitude of the Fordian hero. The thrown lamp, however, does not conclude this particular film. Does the throwing theme bring about the narrative tying together of Liberty Valance? It is usually said that the film ends with the image of a departing train carrying the senator and his wife, but there is another Fordian gesture that concludes the narrative. James Stewart goes to light his pipe. Seeing the joy of the controller who hails him as the man who shot Liberty Valance, he blows out his match and begins to throw it away. Nothing is more specific to Ford than the suspended gesture of a character, an extinguished match in his hand. The senator seems to want to claim the dignity of being Fordian. But it is easy to grasp how Seven Women 1965, with Anne Bancroft as a doctor who sacrifices herself to a Mongolian bandit in order to save her companions, is profoundly Fordian. The throwing theme illustrates to the highest degree the central character's solitude. Recall her final gesture, downing a poisoned wine glass, which she then throws to the ground with a resigned smile. A fade-out slowly effaces her image from the screen. As the words "the end" appear on the blank screen, this disappearance, echoing the signs of farewell characteristic of the Fordian thematic of throwing, marks not only the end of this film, but the entire Fordian oeuvre. No other filmmaker has ended his career with such mastery.